What is happening to Russia? Russia may face a more prolonged and even deeper recession. The impact of the United States and European sanctions spread and has badly affected various sectors in multiple countries. This alone has caused a lot of handicapping sectors that the country has relied on for years to power its economy. Russia's economy has tried to avoid the meltdown many predicted after Moscow sent its forces into Ukraine 6 months ago, with greater prices for its oil exports housing the impact of Western sanctions. Still, with the look of things, hardships are beginning to emerge for some Russians. The current inflation issues also have a hand in Russia's current problem. Even if we decide not to talk about the current inflation, the massive financial collapse prediction we might encounter very soon will spur up every news. So what exactly is going on? How can Russia mitigate this problem? This is why we're here today. Watch this video to the end because we've got a lot to cover, and trust us, it's going to be interesting. Russia's economy was already collapsing after Western countries imposed unprecedented sanctions on Moscow after the war in Ukraine. But a few weeks ago, the Russian Statistics Bureau, Rosstat, and gross domestic product in the first 6 months of the year had fallen by just 0.4%. Capital investment is up. The ruble has rebounded. In fact, inflation that soared when the war began has started to subside. Now, a top Russian government official forecasted that this year's GDP would be just 3% lower and not contract by a third. This can only mean one thing for the Russian government. According to an internal report prepared for the government due to President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the result of work by officials and experts trying to assess the actual impact of Russia's economic isolation paints a more dire picture than officials usually do in their upbeat political pronouncements. Bloomberg viewed a copy of the report drafted for a closed-door meeting of top officials on August 30th. People familiar with the deliberations confirmed its authenticity. Remember that President Putin established an informal social contract with the people of Russia based on being able to deliver solid economic growth. Under Putin's rule, things were initially getting better, buoyed by a commodity price supercycle that would stretch well into the 21st century. In fact, Russia's GDP in market exchange rates rose tenfold, which provided purchasing power to its middle class and returned the country to global relevance. But due to happenings, a whole lot of things began to change. Russia's economy began to flag. Experts argue that this began from a peak in 2013. Putin sought new legitimacy to govern through foreign policy actions to reestablish Russia's status as a great power. Yes, these efforts were epitomized by the Crimean annexation of 2014. However, Russia's invasion of Ukraine lost a third of its value between 2013 and 2020 against Russia's market rate GDP. This factor represents a doubling down of Putins' strategy to seek legitimacy from great power status rather than economic performance. There were predictions that the Russian economy at a point would shrink more than 12% this year, exceeding the output falls seen after the Soviet Union collapsed and during the 1998 financial crisis. Even after this prediction, the economy ministry now expects a 4.2% contraction. High global prices of energy have helped the Kremlin follow through on President Putin's pledge in March to mitigate poverty and inequality despite crippling Western inflation and sanctions. As a matter of fact, some economists had compared what is happening to the COVID-19 pandemic when authorities increased payments for those most vulnerable to the crisis. It's safe to say that the Russian ruble will be worthless soon based on the current issues. But while the Russian currency crisis remains awful, there's an even more pressing concern which should really be handled well. All right, Russia is losing money. We know. We understand that imports are indeed essential so that customers can purchase products. Still, we should also understand that exports are essential for Russia to sustain its spending on the Ukraine invasion. As a result of Western sanctions on oil and gas, Russia has lost a wide portion of its customers for its energy products. Currently, 40% of Russia's GDP comes from the sale of oil and gas. This reason has made it become a primary concern for Russia's economy. How about the country's energy boom? Can it really continue? Fast food continuity is one thing, and Russia's longer-term stability rests on its energy sector, which is still the most significant source of government revenues. Saying that high energy prices have so far insulated Russia would be an understatement. The International Energy Agency informs the people that Russia's revenues from selling oil and gas to Europe doubled between March and July this year, compared to an average of recent years. That's despite declining volumes, and IEA data shows gas deliveries to Europe are down by about 75% over the past 12 months. However, President Putin has attempted the idea of selling oil and natural gas to China and India instead. Can this even work? Well, this is so doubtful. First, let's start with natural gas. It's obvious that it's incredibly difficult to scale when it comes to selling natural gas. This is because transporting natural gas requires pipelines, and pipelines just can't be built overnight. In fact, they take a lot of years to do the planning, setting up, and building. Even after this, Putin will still argue that he can just sell liquefied natural gas that will be transported by sea. Well, this is once again not true and practical. For your information, less than 10% of Russia's natural gas is liquefied. This means that the other 90% of oil must be transported through pipelines. All right, understand that Russia has a network of pipelines that are used to transport natural gas to Europe. However, because Europe has cut off business with Russia, utilizing these pipelines can no longer work. Russia also has a separate pipeline network that links eastern Siberia to Asia, but the Siberian network only has 10% of the capacity compared to Russia's European network. New pipelines connecting Russia to East Asia are currently in construction, but those will take years to be completed. Not only that, but what this means is that the country may no longer be able to fund these new pipelines due to its weak economic situation. So with this current situation, oil is indeed a different matter. The IEA's March prediction that 3 million barrels a day of Russian oil would come off the market from April because of sanctions or their threat has not materialized. Experts have held up, though Reichstad energy analysts note a slight drop over the summer, and one of the major factors is that Russia has been unable to find new markets in Asia. According to Humayun Falakshali from commodities consultancy Kepler, most of Russia's seaborne oil exports have gone to Asia since the start of the war. In July, the share was 56% compared to just 37% in July 2021. While global inflation is helping Russia's energy sector, it's really affecting its people. Just like some countries in Europe, Russians are already suffering a cost of living crisis, made much worse by the war in Ukraine. People are worried. The government is also worried. But the truth is that worrying can't solve the problem. Action will. In terms of the standard of living, if you measure it by real incomes, Russia has gone backward by about 10 years. This was said by Nichav, who helped steer Russia through a much more dramatic economic collapse in the 1990s. We understand that the Russian government is spending to try to combat this. But with the situation of things, can we begin to see a slower burn in Russia's economy, or will things change for the better? Right now, the economic decline has started, and time will tell when it will get better. And that's it for today, guys. If you're optimistic about the future of the economy, do well to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.